Hi, firstly. And we started off in 2018, early 2019. So that time EVs in Indian ecosystem was still picking up. Like we have very handful number of people or companies actually talking about electric vehicles. While definitely now it is the buzzword of the industry. People are talking about it a lot. People are doing it a lot. But back then, when we were trying to start doing electric vehicles in specific, the ecosystem around the technology was little lacking. Hence, a lot of it that we have today was built with that ideology that the ecosystem was not there at all, right? So for Indian, when we talk about like Indianizing things, like how exactly Indian ecosystem or Indian conditions are different from a West country or from a China or from European countries, in that case, Indian customers have a tendency of overloading vehicles. It's very obvious. Like even if you say that the vehicle has a capacity of doing 700 kgs of payload, while we are in commercial vehicles, so we talk a lot about from a payload standpoint, right? So let's say we talk about 700 kgs as a passing criteria. In that case, from our mindset, we are very obvious that they will do a ton or maybe plus minus 100 kgs. Yeah. So hence we have to design it that way that it should carry at least a ton, but the certifications or the paperwork or the documentation is around 700 kgs or 600 kgs for our use case. So hence for designing those for those conditions, and specifically for the Indian road conditions where you have unplanned bumps or high extreme weather conditions in north, you see, right, you have extremes of 50s touching, like in Rajasthan you have extreme of 50s in summers, while in winters in Kashmir maybe you will have sub zero temperatures as well. So you have very varied temperature ranges as well. So there are three factors that impact your designing strategy: temperature, these sudden unexpected conditions, which would be sudden potholes or any maybe sudden conditions, and then the payload, like how exactly you are putting payloads into the vehicle. So all these aspects were kind of creating issues for us while we're designing things. So we were very clear that we have to design a lot of things in-house. So while we started picking up things, we were very sure that we want, like for example, electronic component. When I say electronic component, I mean an electronic control. It's an ECU, right, which goes inside the vehicle. It's PCB that goes inside the vehicle. So all electronic components that sits on the PCB. So we overrated them. Right? We made sure that it has a buffer of 50%, 60%. Even if you're pushing 100 amps, you should at least that component should be able to carry 200 amps, let's say. So that was our first strategy. Then we did prototyping of, let's say, 10-15 odd vehicles. We covered every terrain that were possible, sent few set of vehicles to Rajasthan, sent few set of vehicles to Uttarakhand because you have hilly areas, you have constant uphills. Then we said some set of vehicles to down south where you have high moisture, the humidity is really high. So all varied conditions, we started gathering data. So from day one, we were also very sure that only one thing will be able to help us, that is data. We cannot rely on subjective opinion on things. We wanted to quantify things really well. So to quantification, the only thing that can support us data. So everything that goes inside the vehicle today, like for example, there are 5 or 6 odd ECUs that goes inside the vehicle. So they are constantly giving us data even at a higher frequency of 100 milliseconds or 50 milliseconds. So we have loads of data that are coming out of vehicle. So every 5 odd second, the vehicle now is capable of sending 200 odd data points to our cloud infrastructure. And then that kind of triggers a different set of pipeline that we'll maybe chat later. But all this data is important. Why? Because that told us exactly how exactly these systems are performing. Like, have we really extremely over-designed our system so that we need to under-design it so that it also meets our cost expectation? Because if you over-design, it also comes with a cost, right? So all those parameters are also important for us as to what are these set of things that we want to design correctly. So this is how we started our journey of Indianizing things and making sure that our vehicle is kind of performing really well for the Indian conditions. So last mile logistics now has started asking those questions from us that, hey, why don't we integrate this with our platforms as well? And maybe we can give these transparency levels to our customers as well, that exactly this is your location of the vehicle that is kind of coming to deliver your items, and this is the expected delivery because of so and so reason. So that transparency is something that they're really eyeing on right now. they have been tracking uptime of the vehicle and the usability. Like they want to do maybe multiple shifts by the same vehicle. Hence they have been coming back with fast charging questions like, oh, can they fast charge the vehicles, and is there an opportunity to fast charge the vehicles even on roads? Maybe like, why can't you use a public charging station maybe deployed by a government agency? Why can't you fast charge using those vehicles? So those were the set of questions that we started gathering, and maybe made sure that our vehicle now today is capable of getting charged over any public charging station, one, and that too fast charge, because as you know, that vehicles are capable of are compatible with arc reactor technology. That's a patented tech that we have done. Now we are even thinking of pushing it further with newer generations of arc reactor. Like today's we have arc reactor 100. Now we are thinking of maybe can we bring newer generations which can be even can further push our fast charging capabilities to maybe some better numbers. Like, so that is something that they definitely had a big question on, like what would be your fast charging capabilities? Can they charge, can they full charge in 30 minutes or 45 minutes, and questions like that, so that they can cross utilize that vehicle. Like in the first shift they can do 80 or 100 odd kilometers in the first go, and then they can fast charge in 30 odd minutes, and then they can do another shift in the evening shift with the same vehicle. So they don't have to buy newer vehicles to do the evening shift. So that is something that is coming up. So I'll try to split this question into like why and how. So the lithium cells that we have. So lithium as an intrinsic property itself has a healthy temperature range. It does not mean that it will not operate post or pre that range. It will just degrade faster. If you think about why degradation matters, is because you want to have a longer life of the vehicle, so that you also have a healthy secondary value of the vehicle. So second ownership of the vehicle is a big market of Indian industry, and this is how exactly the TCO and the maths work out for commercial vehicles. You own it for like for example 3-wheelers, you usually typically own vehicles for 4-5 years, and then you think of like, and I sell this vehicle to maybe someone else and have the initial down payment for my next vehicle from the selling of this vehicle to as a secondary life, right? So hence longevity of the battery pack was definitely a question. Now when we started digging deeper into that direction, we understand that from our complete vehicle ecosystem, battery was the component that was contributing your 40 to 50% of your BOM item. Like BOM is bill of material, like the cost of the vehicle, right? So in that scenario, we were very sure that we want to give the longest life for the battery packs. So the lithium ion, coming back to the point where we started, like lithium ion cells will be healthiest within a temperature range, and that healthy range depends on the chemistry of the lithium cells. Like we are today at using the NCA and NMC cells. So that particular chemistry is healthy between 25 to 40 odd degrees or even 35 odd degrees. So when you run, like it's a closed box, think of a battery box, it's because it's an IP rated box, you have to properly close it so that you don't have a water inlet coming in, you have water logging everywhere. Think of a scenario where your vehicle is standing in a waterlogged area, you don't want the water logging to come inside your battery, because it can probably cause short circuit or maybe failure of your battery packs. Hence, it's a closed enclosed box. So in that case, the battery box, the cell temperatures will definitely be at least plus 10 degrees above than the ambient temperatures. When we were testing in Rajasthan, areas like Rajasthan, where the ambient itself was 50 degrees. So your batteries now, cells will be sitting at 60 degrees, probably plus minus 2, depending upon like how you're driving it. So the degradation of cells was extremely high. And similarly for Kashmir, why we tested for Kashmir was because you have sub 0 degrees. The degradation is even faster when you have sub-0 degrees. When I say degradation is faster, I mean that your battery can completely degrade within 6 months. Like even buying your vehicle today, your vehicle can completely degrade within 6 months if you're driving your electric vehicles powered by a lithium ion cell in these areas, if it's not properly maintained. Hence, we were very sure, like not only in charging, we also need proper cooling system for discharging as well. Otherwise, you will definitely face a high degradation rates in those areas. So out of this data, we were very sure that we want to solve it. The second problem we attempted was because our commercial 3-wheeler does not come with cabin cool, right? You do not have ACs in the cabin. So you do not have a very obvious cooling system inside the vehicle. So now you have to invent something that will only specifically cool down your battery packs and is not required to cool down the cabin. Because you cannot have an AC inside the cabin, right? Because it's a 3-wheeler. People are only buying it because it's working, it's functional, it's performant, and it's cheap as well. You cannot kind of bloat or balloon your cost that way. So we came out with the solution that we wanted to cool down the battery packs, maintain it within the healthy range, but we also wanted to make it very, very cheap. So there we started off implementing engineering AR, which is arc reactor 100 system. Arc reactor 100 is a beautiful system which kind of runs, primarily feeds on the primary battery pack, but make sure that it uses only 2 to 3% of the battery pack and cools down effectively so that it can give you that last 2 to 3 years of the longevity, right? So it will make sure that your battery kind of runs 5 to 6 years now in a healthy range. If we do not have arc reactor system today while discharging, your battery may die within 4 years or 3 years, in fact, depends on how you're riding it. So we were very, very sure that we want to have an arc reactor system. Now within arc reactor system, it's like kind of patented and IP driven, but you have some semiconductor based cooling as to how do you, like the hot liquid kind of comes in, it will cool down the liquid, then it flows back. You have some regulatory systems in the middle, which will cross. The pure magic of engineering sits within the battery pack, where how exactly these channels are kind of getting intact, because you have cylindrical cells. These are cylindrical, just like your AAA batteries that sits inside the remotes, right? So you have the maximum surface area within the cell surface. So we had to make sure that the channel that are going in, which carries the cold liquid, kind of touches the cells really well. So those were the engineering intricacies that we had to solve for it. So one was that because the hot liquid is coming in for this arc reactor system, because it has absorbed all the heat from the battery pack, so the hot liquid is coming in. So we needed to place the arc reactor system within the vehicle such that the hot air kind of which gets out of the system needs to be circulated out of the vehicle. So the placement of this arc reactor was a very, very tricky part. Trust me, we wasted almost months solving the packaging of it. So it had to be placed such so that when you're driving it, the maximum air kind of touches it. Like when you're driving the vehicle, in that positive direction, the wind, the air that is coming in should touch it, takes away the hot air and takes that away along with it. So the placement of it, which angle to place, the packaging, the process of it so that it packages the same way every time, was one big part of it that we luckily solved by investing few R&D months in that. Along with that, we also were able to, like the process of it is really challenging as well, right? So making one vehicle versus making thousands of the same vehicle, these are two different stories. I just want to quote Elon Musk, like when in one of his video he mentioned like prototyping was cute, come into the industrialization part of it. By industrialization, we definitely mean building thousands of it every month or month and month. So that is definitely tricky, because you think of the scale of it, where we the first 10 vehicles were kind of constantly built by us, the engineers of it. We were constantly looking at like how we are building it, when we are building it. But when you build these 1,000 vehicles, you have different set of people which are not that trained, right? You have to train them, these blue collar employees, where you have to upskill them in that direction so that they can also come to that level, so that they can properly package it really well. So that was another thing that is still kind of going on. We are still picking up those niggles that are there inside the vehicle, inside the process in fact. But yes, that was a challenging part for arc reactor as a system. Okay. So condensation we were the initial 10 vehicles we deployed was out of those 10 vehicles, the first two set of vehicles were in south, where you have highest amount of humidity in that weather. So when you push a liquid at, let's say, a 20 or a 15 degrees versus the ambient sitting at 35, it will try to create droplets. And when you have droplets inside the vehicle, inside the battery pack, that can be a catastrophe, because it could create short circuit and that could lead to fires or something. So to remove condensation, while it's a secret sauce, we will not be able to come up with the exact solution of what we did, but at least the IP rating helped a lot. So when we package a battery pack, we also make sure that the humidity, while we were packaging it, there will be air that is trapped inside the battery pack, because when you're closing the lid of the battery pack, there will be some air trapped. So post the packaging of the battery pack, we also make sure that this humidity, all the water content is extracted out of it, in some process, in some way. And And when we test for IP, we also test for there is no air infiltration. Just not liquid, we also test for that there is no air infiltration as well. And it should always be one way, because you also, as per homologation requirement, you need to have a pressure valve, just in case if there's thermal runaway, the air should come out of it. So it should be one way, it should not be the other way around. So we also solved for that. Firstly, we are on AWS, which is Amazon Web Service, for our cloud requirements, for most of our cloud requirements, while we are also using some Google Cloud services as well, for mostly for mapping and navigations and route services. Along with that, the telemetry which is sitting inside the vehicle today is co-developed by us. While you're driving the vehicle, if you remember, like, so when you have phones, right, when you go inside a tunnel, there will be a loss of reception. Your phone can still live with the loss of reception. But think of a scenario where your vehicle goes inside the tunnel and there was some anomaly and it had a loss of connection. So we were of this opinion that the vehicle should have maximum uptime. It should have least amount of downtime of the for connectivity. Hence, we had to innovate a lot on the network layer of it. Right? So the obvious, the integrations that were provided out, the third-party offerings for telemetry were on the TCP/IP. I don't know if you're aware of this network protocol. So it's a TCP/IP network protocol. So when we tried testing out TCP/IP network protocol initially, it kind of failed our requirements, because either our requirements was too high, we were too ambitious with our network requirements, or it was such that it was not really well defined for the integration that we were doing. So we started inventing a few bits and pieces for the network protocol. We ended up with a newer protocol which is highly suited for our IoT requirements and the one that are sitting inside the vehicle, and we ended up using it really well. Now, to just to quote numbers of to how exactly our uptimes for the connectivity plays along, we are 97% connected with the cloud, and for the times it is not connected, it is curating data locally, so that whenever it gets the reception back, it will make sure that it will notify the cloud again, just like your WhatsApp. Like whenever you're out of network, the WhatsApp will notify once you have connections back. The biggest point that we implemented was 60 days of backup. Like, even worst case scenario, you go to a very, very remote area where you do not have reception at all. In that case, the device will make sure that it backs up your data for next 60 days. And whenever you have reception, it will try to sync those 60 days with us as to what went while you were not connected to the cloud. So this was the first part of it. The second layer was when you receive data on cloud, what you do and how quickly you can revert back. Like, for example, the cloud detects with the data that is coming in that something is about to go wrong. So that was the predictive part of it. So there is a lot of pipeline that we have built in the AWS stack that we have developed. Like, what if the pipeline triggers an alarm saying that there's something bad that can go wrong, right? So in that case, the AWS pipeline is built such that it will go notify to the vehicle as well that, hey, why didn't you take a rest for some time? And it will eventually, the vehicle control unit, which is the brain of the vehicle, will receive this signal and take that. Because when you're driving, for example, in a highway, you cannot immediately stop, right? So there will be alarms where you will be required to go speed down, take a roadside, maybe rest for some time. And we are well informative on those regards as to how long we are asking you to wait, like what was the ETA of it. So it is well defined and described on the instrument cluster that this is what has gone wrong. You will also receive notifications of what exactly can go wrong and why we want to take that stop. So vehicle control unit, we call it Project Stark. So we have internal fancy names for our projects. So Stark, I call it VCU. Yeah. So VCU works as definitely the brain of the vehicle. So its responsibility is to maintain the health of the vehicle, not a component, the vehicle. So for example, we have BMS, which is to maintain the health of the battery pack. It communicates with the VCU. You have motor controller, which communicates with the motor controller. This motor controller communicates to the VCU. It is kind of the central repository, the master of all the ECUs. It goes and communicates with all ECUs, asks for like, how's your health, report your health. Like if everything is healthy, it will notify to the cloud that the vehicle is healthy. If either one of the component, let's say BMS reports that, hey, the battery pack is sitting at a higher temperature, what should I do? The VCU will ask the battery pack to turn on even if your vehicle is turned off. What if if I park my vehicle on a very sunny day just under the sun, even if you're not driving it, the temperature will go high, right? So in that case, even if your vehicle is turned on and you have enough battery juice inside the battery pack, in that case the VCU will take that decision on its own that, hey, turn on the battery pack, cool down yourself, report that you're healthy, and then we'll shut down. And this will be notified to a cloud as well. So that was the first part of it where we identified that VCU should have a lot of intelligence built in. Along with it, we have also identified a lot of it, like for example, when people started buying electric vehicles, usually electric vehicles have a lot of higher torque. Like whenever you accelerate, you will feel a jerk, right? So you will have a sudden jerk that you feel. So in that case, the initial set of drivers had the tendency of braking while accelerating. So the expected range that we gave to our customers was that you will definitely get 120 odd kilometers when you drive. But those set of customers which were braking and accelerating used to get 80 to 100 kilometers. They had this like, why did you told us 120? It should be within 100. Then we started observing like what is going wrong with this set of vehicles. Then we built in that feature of within VCU that whenever you're braking and accelerating, then we kind of notify you that, hey, your driving behavior is little odd. Why don't you try this? These tendencies were then built in within the VCU. That smartness quotient was introduced to the VCU that keep on observing. We also built in, again, another secret sauce, but we also built in another ML machine learning kind of algorithms within the vehicle control unit. Like while you're driving it, it constantly learns of how you're driving it and make sure that it will give you insights of how you can drive better, so that you have better, let's say, longevity of the vehicle or better range or better efficiencies of the vehicle. So that was another thing, that a lot of things, out of a lot of things, that was another thing that we have introduced for a vehicle control unit. So Shepherd has a web app where you can definitely log in, has a dashboard, web dashboard. It also has mobile version of it. We are already out on Android and Play stores and app stores. So when I'll talk for both because these both flavors have different features. I'll try to keep it short. Like for the web app version, we have fleet analytics. So people think of a big company which has thousands of vehicles. They'll not be able to kind of micromanage each vehicle independently. What they want is an early view on the fleet. If something is going south on the fleet level, then they will dive deeper into like what vehicle is having impacts or issues or niggles. So the fleet analytics is our first touch point that we want our customers to look at. These fleet analytics are not only a typical fleet analytics, it will also have insights of what you can do better, because that's an additional point for our Shepherd app. Like for example, go have your tire, for example, when people drive our vehicles with lower tire pressures, in that case they can get a poor range. We'll also monitor that. And we also give insights of, hey, why don't you get this vehicle 1, 2, 3, 4, depending on the registration number, and get the air checked for that vehicle. Insights like that. There you have quick actionable items in the fleet level. Just not that, you will have also vehicle level insights. Like vehicle level insights could be that driver A versus driver B. We have seen two different drivers driving this vehicle today. Driver A had this driving score versus driver B had this driving score. Why don't you go have a chat with driver A as to he was accelerating while braking? Like one example that we gave before as well. Versus on the Shepherd app, because you have smaller real estate, phones, screens are a little smaller than the laptop versions. So you have more vehicle level connectivity on that. So vehicle level connectivity will give you insights of how exactly you were driving. Like for example, trips. When you have trips, you can also have options to play back, completely review your trip. For example, I'm one manager. I have 3 drivers below me. Driver A had a stop at some pan shop, right? So some cigarette shop, he had a stop for, let's say, odd 15 minutes. So I will get a notification of that this driver A has been standing idle for almost 15 minutes and is expected to have this kind of delays on their deliveries. So these kind of notifications we have already integrated in the Shepherd app. And even if it's full of events, like your trip can be full of events, you were standing, it was idling, it detected like your vehicle got towed because you were parking in a wrong place. This is a towing activity which will get notified on the application that this vehicle 1, 2, 3, 4 has been towed from this particular location. Why don't you contact your nearest? So we also give you the contact numbers why don't you call this number and get it cross-checked and get that fixed. So these are smaller insights that we have already integrated on our applications as well. Okay. So Shepherd is one touch point for our customer. We wanted that to be a one-stop solution for our customers. They can find charging stations. What's the nearest charging station? Where can I go and plug my vehicle for battery use? Along with that, we also introduced servicing. Like it's a big item in the Shepherd app, where you can go create tickets for yourself. These tickets will give you option to upload videos, will give you option to upload images, write text, as to like what do you feel can go wrong, as to what do you feel has gone wrong on the vehicle. That is the first piece of information for us. These tickets are then automatically through cloud again are dedicated to our service team. Service team has a dashboard where all these tickets are coming in with their location, so where this ticket kind of came from. Then the local service station, depending on, like for example, you raise a ticket from Chennai. So in that case, Chennai service station will then be notified automatically that this service ticket has been generated from this particular location. And this is the expected downtime, or this is the expected problem with that vehicle. With that subjective problem, because we don't expect our customers to be techy, they will definitely have their kind of version of what has gone wrong. But we are definitely, as we are connected, we are also tracking of what is going wrong inside the vehicle. So there will be an automated report attached with that problem statement as well. Like what the backend has identified the issue is, along with it, what the customer has notified the issue is. With all this information, the customer center is notified. Then they get prepared of what parts to take along. Because the backend system also notifies as to this is a probability of this particular part has gone wrong, take this part along with you. So the service team will take that part along, go replace and update the ticket, saying that they have updated this part. And this is all connected. So you as a customer will always be informed that this has been replaced now. Now this is happening with your vehicle. Your vehicle is standing now. It's been dispatched. So you are constantly notified of how exactly your vehicle has been played along in the service stations. So this end-to-end integration through the Shepherd app is our first touch point. Along with it, we have a toll-free number where you can definitely call, and the service, the people receiving the calls will try to interpret what you have to say, and then they will do the same process. They will also create a ticket, but the source of the ticket will then be the customer representation team, the CR team. So that's our second touch point. And then you definitely have our showrooms where you can go, and you have service stations almost sitting next to it, where they can directly go and fix those vehicles. I'll try to answer that in 2 or 3 folds. I'll try to answer that from a battery standpoint. I'll try to answer that from an electronic standpoint. Then maybe we'll come on the vehicle as a whole. So battery, we are excited about the newer cells, the newer type of cells that are coming in. You have higher energy densities, where you have solid state coming in, where you have different all flavors coming in. It's just that they will take their own sweet time to commercialize and actually hit into production in our shelves. So the R&D is excited and doing a lot in that direction, where we are creating newer batteries, thinking of newer type of cooling, where as I mentioned, that AR100 is our today's generation of arc reactor. We are definitely bringing in newer generations of arc reactor. That is another tech that we are solving for. From outside the battery world, we have electronics as a next piece where most amount of innovation will go, where the heat losses, for example, when you talk about motor controllers, there is, whenever you switch from motor, whenever you give a throttle, right, how exactly a vehicle runs, whenever you give a throttle, the motor controller interprets of what exactly you mean, right? If you're given a full throttle, it should accelerate more, while you give a higher half throttle, it should accelerate less. So this interpretation of your throttle is done by the motor controller. This motor controller then requests the motor to run at that particular speed. When you do this, you lose a lot of energy in form of heat and different form of energies. With newer technologies that we are testing out, the losses of heat is kind of, we are pushing our limits to bring it down. What happens with this is, you will need lesser energy to do the same amount of activity, right? So your vehicle as a whole will become more efficient, while we are kind of bringing more newer set of electronics that we are trying out in our R&D. The best part at Euler is, like, we do a lot of things at our own. So that also gives us the flexibility to innovate a lot in our PCBs, in our batteries, where we are much closer with these technology pieces than our incumbents, right? So that ways, I am very excited of what we are going to do next.